For nearly 8 decades, the United States dollar has been the undisputed king of global trade. Oil, gold, technology, even everyday goods that move across oceans, all of it has been settled in dollars. The dollar wasn't just a currency, it was power. A silent weapon that allowed Washington to influence the fate of nations without ever firing a bullet. But today, something is happening that could change the course of history. A coalition of nations, bound together not by ideology but by necessity, is beginning to challenge the dollar's throne. And right at the center of this seismic shift stands India. Think about this. Just a decade ago, nobody imagined India would play such a pivotal role in reshaping global finance. Yet here we are. With BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, pushing for a new payment system and even a new currency, the world is beginning to ask a dangerous question. Are we witnessing the slow end of America's financial empire? To understand why this is so dramatic, let's rewind. The US dollar became the global reserve currency after World War II. Through the Bretton Woods Agreement, nations agreed to peg their currencies to the dollar, and the dollar itself was linked to gold. This system collapsed in the 1970s, but by then, the dollar's dominance was already cemented. America had one huge advantage: oil. The petrodollar deal with Saudi Arabia meant every country had to hold dollars to buy energy, and that deal alone guaranteed demand for US currency, fueling decades of American prosperity. But cracks have been forming. When the US uses sanctions as a weapon, nations feel trapped. Russia was cut off from SWIFT, Iran has been squeezed for decades, and China constantly fears that its financial flows could be strangled in a crisis. The result, a growing alliance of nations that no longer want to depend on Washington's goodwill to survive. This is where BRICS comes in. What started as a loose grouping of emerging economies is now becoming a serious alternative power bloc. Their latest move, the creation of BRICS Pay, a cross-border payment system, is designed to bypass the US dollar. And here's the twist. India, once seen as a reliable US partner, has joined it. Why does this matter so much? Because India is not Russia, isolated under sanctions. India is not China, locked in rivalry with Washington. India is a rising democracy, a trusted partner for both East and West. If India backs a BRICS currency or payment system, it gives the entire project legitimacy. Suddenly, it's not just about China and Russia versus America, it's about a new financial order that half the world can rally behind. Imagine this scenario. A barrel of oil traded not in dollars, but in a BRICS currency. A diamond shipment from Surat to Moscow settled directly in rupees and rubles. African nations paying for Chinese infrastructure projects without ever touching the dollar. Each of these steps chips away at US power. And here's where the United States finds itself trapped. On one hand, it needs India as a strategic counterweight to China. On the other, its aggressive tariff war and protectionist policies are pushing India further toward BRICS unity. Washington wants New Delhi to be its ally, but its own decisions may be driving India into the arms of Russia and China. Now, let's be clear, the dollar is not collapsing tomorrow. America still controls the deepest financial markets, the most trusted institutions, and a military that backs its global reach. But history tells us something important. Empires rarely fall in a single blow. They crumble slowly, losing pieces of influence one after another, until suddenly the world realizes the center of gravity has shifted. Look at the British pound. Once the world's reserve currency, it didn't vanish overnight. It eroded decade by decade as new powers rose. The same could be happening now with the dollar. And this time India, not just China, is in the spotlight. For India, this is a balancing act of epic proportions. On one side lies its booming trade with the United States, its defense partnerships, its technology ties with Silicon Valley. On the other side lies the pull of BRICS, cheaper oil from Russia, a vast Chinese market, and the promise of financial independence from Western dominance. The question is, how long can India walk this tightrope before being forced to choose? Ordinary people will feel these shifts too. If BRICS currencies start gaining ground, international students paying tuition, exporters sending goods abroad, even travelers booking flights may no longer need dollars. Imagine Indian businesses trading directly in rupees with Africa or South American countries, bypassing US banks entirely. For millions, this means lower costs, faster payments, and less vulnerability to America's financial shocks. But here's the catch. A BRICS currency isn't just economics, it's politics. If such a system succeeds, it directly undermines US influence. Washington would see it as a threat, and history shows America does not let challenges to its dominance go unanswered. Which raises a bigger question. Could this financial tug-of-war escalate into a new kind of Cold War, not fought with weapons, but with currencies and trade routes? As the world debates, India's choices will matter more than ever. Will New Delhi align firmly with the West, preserving the dollar's dominance, or will it embrace BRICS fully, leading a multipolar financial revolution? One thing is certain, India is no longer a spectator. It is a central player in the greatest power struggle of our time. And perhaps decades from now, historians will look back and say, this was the moment the world shifted, not in a battlefield, not in a parliament, but in the silent, invisible world of money, when the dollar's crown began to slip, and India helped lead the charge toward something new.